Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yesterday we had Bruce and Dawn's wedding ceremony here, and we had, I think, about 50 people in this room. I think that was the largest gathering in the history of this temple. Although it was raining, we had a nice ceremony. Anyway, today I'd like to talk on one paragraph on page 105 of this text, opening the hand of thought. Let me read this paragraph. In the Zazen posture, we are able to calm down and our mental excitability diminishes. It is by nature a posture in which it is impossible to think continuously about the same thing, and the fictions we set up in our heads dissolve. Therefore, when doing Zazen, we just sit, letting go of everything that comes up. All that has been learned is given back to learning. All that is memorized is given back to memory. All that has been thought is given back to thought. To let go of everything, that is the posture of Zazen. In this section of this text, Okumura Roshi is discussing about the significance or meaning of this Zazen practice in terms of the modern civilization for modern people. And the previous paragraph he explained about the posture and breathing. And in this paragraph, he talks about what's happening in our mind. In our Zazen practice, there are three important points. One is this posture, upright posture. We keep our body upright and hold our hands like this in front of our navel and keep our eyes open. And when and during Zazen, we breathe through our nose deeply and peacefully and smoothly without making noise. And we keep our eyes open. That is about posture and breathing. And another important point is mind. This is Cho, Shin, Cho Soku, and Cho Shin. Cho is to harmonize or to put it into order or to adjust. And first part is body, Shin is body. So this posture is how we harmonize or straighten up our body. And our way of breathing, the abdominal breath, is how we regulate or harmonize our breathing. And the third thing is mind, Cho Shin, how we can harmonize our mind. And Dogen Zenji, when he wrote his manual of Zazen practice entitled Fukan Zazengi, he described how to regulate our body and breathing. And about the mind, he only quote one koan expression from one koan story. That is, think of not thinking. This is 資料 ko 不資料 定
Can you use a different pen? Is it possible? It's very difficult.
Shirio means thinking, and who is not Shirio thinking. So think of not thinking. Te makes this as a noun, into noun. So, and next line is, how do you think of not thinking? And finally Dogen said, he Shirio. Not Dogen, but this is in the koan. He is also again not and thinking, but this who and he are different. So I translate this hishirio as beyond. I translate this fushirio as not thinking, and hishirio as beyond thinking. This is only thing Dogen wrote in his manual of Zazen about how we harmonize or regulate our mind. So we have to understand what this means. And what Okumura Roshi is writing here in this paragraph is about this how to regulate or harmonize our mind according to Dogen's teaching. So important point is here is thinking and not thinking and beyond thinking. What are the meaning of those three things? And these two are opposite to each other. Thinking and not thinking are opposite to each other. But this hishirio is beyond the thinking, means beyond thinking and not thinking. And also including them. It's beyond them and yet embracing them. So thinking and not thinking are both there. And both are, in a sense, both are negated. That is what beyond means. And yet both are embraced. If this beyond thinking excludes thinking and not thinking, then this becomes relative between against thinking and not thinking. But this beyond thinking or hishirio include thinking and not thinking, and what that means is I think what Dogen, not Dogen, but Okumura is saying here. Please.
It reminds me a lot of what Okumura Roshi said about magnanimous mind. He said the big mind is beyond the difference between big and small. So
yes.
It all includes both.
Yeah. Yes. And this is not only but in Okumura Roshi or Dogen's teaching, but in Mahayana teaching, for example, let's see, Mahayana teaching, particularly the Lotus Sutra, says Hinayana and Mahayana. And Mahayana, in the beginning of the history of Mahayana negates the Hinayana. But at least according to Tendai teachings, real Mahayana should include both of them. Transcend or beyond that dichotomy, and yet embrace both of them. That is what absolute means. If absolute exclude relatives, then this become relative with relatives. So absolute needs to embrace relatives. That is the kind of a pattern of thinking or logic. Anyway, I think what Okumura Roshi is saying in this paragraph is his understanding of what this meant. Think, not thinking, thinking, not thinking, and beyond thinking. First, he says, in the Zazen posture, within this Zazen, when we sit in this posture, facing the wall, we are able to calm down. Means when we sit facing the wall, there's nothing exciting about the wall, and it's usually it's quiet in the zendo, so we don't have object that make our mind exciting. So it's very natural to calm down. When the environment is calmed down, we start to hear our sound or noise from inside. So often we feel our mind is busier than usual in the zendo or when we are sitting. So sometimes people think doesn't work to me. But I think it's the sign of it working. That means when we are outside of the zendo and encountering with these things, this and that, which we have to react right away. We have to react or interact with those things. So we don't have time or space to hear things from inside. But when those external objects disappear, we start to hear the noise from inside, and things happening inside our mind become the object, and we start to interact within our mind. That is a problem. But that is kind of important thing, to see, to understand that our life is not only interaction with things outside, but things happening inside of ourselves is also very important, or more like that determine how we work with other external things. But anyway, our mind can calm down naturally, and our mental excitability diminishes. This is almost the same thing, because there's no object we have to react right away. And it is by nature a posture in which it is impossible to think continuously about the same thing. And the fictions were set up in our head, the fictions we set up in our head dissolved. This dissolve is a translation of Japanese expression kaitai. Kai, here we use the word dissolve, but in the previous paragraph, the same word is translated as dismantle. And this kai means, dismantle or dissolve or take apart or disassembly or deconstruct. That means this thing, I don't know what is this, is kind of these different elements are assembled and looks like one thing and function as one thing. But this seemingly one thing is actually the collection of different elements. Therefore, we can disassembly or deconstruct. That is what this means. And this has something to do with, I think, Buddha's teaching of, our life is only the collection of 5 skandhas. But when 5 skandhas, those 5 elements work together, somehow we produce a kind of identity called I. And I think this or that, or these things are mine, my possession. That kind of things become really strong and looks like one thing. But actually these are production from different elements. And when we calm down and become free from excitement, we start to see this, binding of different elements. Then we have a possibility to become free from this clinging. And this, like a glue, that all those things together is ego attachment or clinging. So, as Shakyamuni said, our 5 skandhas are mara. When our 5 skandhas works in that way and produce this ego called I, and I control and own and operate these 5 skandhas. That is how we usually think. Then this 5 skandhas is mara. But what Buddha said is these 5 skandhas are simply a collection of different elements, so we can disassemble. That is release or emancipation from ego attachment. And in the Mahayana teaching, this very same thing is expressed, for example, in the Heart Sutra. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, when deeply practicing prajna paramita, clearly see the emptiness of 5 skandhas. When we see emptiness of 5 skandhas, we cannot grasp, and we don't need to cling. That is when we are released from suffering. So what Buddha taught and what the Heart Sutra is teaching, I think is the same thing. And also according to Dogen, this is called dropping of body and mind. Body and mind is 5 skandhas. The first skandha is body, and the next 4 are the function of mind. And when that's raku. Raku is the word or expression Dogen used. Actually, original person was Dogen's teacher, Tendo Nyojo. That means to take off or to get out, and raku is to fall down. So this means there's something which keep those things as one, but somehow this like a cage or container is broken, then they can get out. That is what Shinjin Datsuraku or dropping of body and mind means. So I think this means not simply seeing the emptiness of 5 skandhas, but 5 skandhas are dismantled. And we see, those things happening in our body and mind is not possessed by someone called I, but this is happening as a movement within ourselves that continued from the past, from our birth as a karma, and also the things outside of ourselves. So actually, this is not one single thing, independent thing, but things happening, both things happening inside and outside and working together. This is a movement. It's not a fixed thing. That is what I think dropping of body and mind means. We think this is one thing, and I as subject sees everything that is object. So we think, this is fixed, and this fixed subject see and evaluate and make judgment and try and treat them depending upon my desire. And when I can control things outside, we think our life is successful or safe or secure. But when we cannot do that, we feel, life is difficult or painful or suffering, or I cannot, deal with this. But by seeing, things happening in here, the way we make judgment is also a collection of different things, karmic things, and things happening outside of ourselves are also different things, and these are actually working together. So actually, there is no such separation between subject and object. Probably I talked about the core story about the sound of wind bell last week. In this case, wind bell is a big bell hanging the ear of the big temple buildings. And when this bell is blown with wind, makes the waves of air. And the question in the koan is, does wind make sound, or does the wind bell make sound? Then his student said, neither wind nor wind bell, but my mind makes sound. That I think that means when we hear, not hear, but when we receive these waves of the air, it becomes sound. So when we encounter things from outside, stimulation from outside, and our sense organs encounter, it makes sound. So sound is not outside of our body until the waves reach our ear. There's no sound. So without receivers, there's no sound. This entire universe is completely silent. Only our mind makes the sound. I think that is true. And I think that is what this disciple's answer means. Sound is not made by wind or the bell, but our mind makes the sound. But Dogen said that was not true. So he said neither wind nor the bell, and also nor our mind. But he said this entire universe is making the sound. Our mind cannot make sound by itself. If there's no wave of the air, it doesn't make sound. So all these elements are necessary. When we hear some sound, whether it's a harmonious, melodious, beautiful sound, or terrible noise. Everything, all of them are really connected and work as one, and make each and everything happening in that way. I think that is what this dismantling or disassembling means. That means we can see each and everything are empty, means not independent beings, but without those things our mind cannot create sound. But the vibration of air is not a sound, and wind is another vibration. And when wind cannot blow by itself, but the condition of air in this entire earth makes the sound, makes the wind. So actually, I think it's really true. This entire universe is making this even a tiny sound.
Roger-san, shall I erase the board?
It's okay now.
Okay.
So I think this in this paragraph, this word kai-tai, or dismantling or dissolving, is important. Or that means in our Zazen, main thing we are facing is the thought coming and going, and together with our what is the word? Sometimes English words disappear in our mind. Emotions, thinking and emotions are almost always together. When I have a certain idea, I almost I like this or I hate that, or I don't care, are always together. But when we see those things as a kind of a movement of everything, including things happening in our mind, then I can see this is not necessarily my personal thinking, and I don't need to identify myself with this thinking. So when we let go, then thought is just there, but I don't think. This thought is there, but I don't think. Thought is there is shiryo or thinking. So even when we sit in this upright posture, our brain is still functioning, and the function of our brain is produce thought. But letting go means not think. So thoughts are there, but I don't think, or these thoughts are not mine. So thought, in a sense, negated, or the root of thinking is cut off. But thoughts are coming and going without roots. That is things happening in our mind. So both thought or thinking and not thinking are there. And Hishiro means we neither negate nor grasp. That means we don't make choice. Things are coming up from our mind. We just let them come. Let them go means let them come. If nothing comes, we cannot let go. So letting go of thought means letting come the thought. So thoughts are coming freely, and we let go. We don't grasp or we don't control. That is like as I always say, our thought is like a cloud in the sky. Sometimes we have a white, peaceful clouds in a blue sky. Sometimes almost half of the sky is covered with clouds, or sometimes entire sky is covered with dark clouds, and sometimes we have rain, or snow, or storm, or lightning. And sometimes there's no clouds at all, completely blue sky. Our mind is the same. Sometimes we have a peaceful, comfortable thinking, happy thinking. But more often, I don't like this thinking. Sometimes we have a storm in our mind during sitting. But we cannot control the weather, unfortunately, or fortunately. That means even if I don't control, those things are coming and going. And I think that is a blessing. If I have to control everything, then it's very difficult, I think. That is a natural thing. So our zazen is not a method to stop clouds coming and going. Whether we let go or let them come or let them go, somehow they come and go. Our practice of just sitting is not controlling. It's coming and going. And we don't grasp or we don't fight against them. What we do is really just sitting. That is only our responsibility when we are sitting facing the wall. This maintain this upright posture, deep and smooth breathing, and letting go of whatever coming and going. But too often we start to interact with those things happening in our mind. As I always said, then those thoughts become the object, and there's a separation between subject and object, and we start to interact with those things. When we do such a things, we are really thinking. That is a problem. When we think, we are thinking. There's a separation between subject and object. That means our mind divided into two sides. One is person sitting, another is those thoughts coming and going. And this person sitting tries to make judgment or interact, and we say, I like this or I hate that. When we do such a thing, our mind is separated into two pieces. Whenever we found that, we stop it and return to this posture and breathing and letting go. So actually we do nothing but sitting. So this is a very kind of a unique practice. I mean, we call this a meditation, but I don't think this is a meditation. I mean, Zen is meditation. And we call this Zazen, sitting meditation. So I'd like to introduce what is meditation in Indian Buddhism. And meditation, samadhi, and dhyana. Dhyana is Zen. Then we can understand the uniqueness of our practice, or Dogen's practice. About meditation. This is writing by Paul Griffith, the Buddhist scholar. And the title of this thesis is Indian Buddhist Meditation. And he kind of make this definition of what is meditation, what is samadhi, and what is dhyana, or Zen. And he said, I use the term meditation very generally to refer to any self-consciously undertaken consciousness altering technique that does not make use of chemical substances external to the practitioner in order to produce the desired alteration. So, according to this person, meditation means to a certain technique to transform our mentality, how our mind works, without using chemicals, means drugs. And he said there is a desirable alternation. That means there's something that is desirable to achieve. And to achieve that desirable mental condition, we use this technique called meditation. But in our practice, there's no such desirable alternation. Our practice is being here and now, whatever our condition might be. So when I talk this point of our practice, after my talk, someone asked, then where is the mind trip? Mind trip? People, I think, common understanding of meditation is kind of a mind trip. Mind go here and there. But our practice, mind here and here. Our mind never go, always always go here and there. But our practice is return to here and now. So in this practice, there's no mind trip. Our mind doesn't go different places. But whenever we find our mind start to go somewhere else, we return to here. And now, what we are doing is just sitting. So, in this meaning, our Zazen is different from usual usage of this word meditation. And also, in order to practice meditation, to meditate, I think we need some object. We meditate. Probably meditate is a translation of Japanese or Chinese word kan. Kan literally means to see, and this is a Chinese translation of Sanskrit word vipassana, to see things. To, for example, counting breath or watching the breath is called a susoku kan or a zuisoku kan. And visualization, practice of visualization is one of the practice of seeing. And another part of Buddhist meditation practice in general is shamatha. Shamatha is stopping. So stopping and seeing is two elements of Buddhist meditation. But we don't stop anything, and we don't see anything. So our Zazen is kind of a very unique thing. Sometimes people think our Zazen is a method of shamatha or stopping, but actually we don't stop anything. We open our hand, and we don't see anything. So this is not a vipassana. So what is this? And Dogen said this is a practice of dropping off body and mind, being free from this, assembly of five skandhas. We just, open our hand. And about the samadhi, this person says, Among the more important technical terms used by Buddhists are the following. First, samadhi. I shall fairly consistently represent this by concentration. So according to this person, samadhi means concentration. But we don't concentrate anything. We don't pay any special attention to some certain object. In order to concentrate, we need we need the object. But Uchiyama Roshi often says, in our Zazen, we don't have any particular object to concentrate. And he used the analogy of driving a car. When we drive a car, to concentrate our attention to certain things, like pedals, brake pedals, or acceleration pedals, or steering wheels, or the things outside the car. He said it's dangerous. But when we are driving or in our zazen, our mind is nowhere. There's no particular object. Our mind is nowhere, means our mind is everywhere. So when something happened, we can react. When we focus on one thing, if something happened somewhere else, we cannot react right away. But when our mind is nowhere and it is awakening, then things happening inside or outside of the car, we can react right away. So our practice is not concentration on certain object, but in our Zazen we don't put our mind on any particular thing, but we try to keep awakening. And when we drive a car with a good condition, good physical and mental condition, we do that thing. We don't need to pay attention to any particular thing, and we see that is dangerous. But our body is almost automatically working without paying attention to any particular thing. But when certain things happen, then we can pay attention to that thing. So in our Zazen practice, like when we drive a car, we don't pay or concentrate our attention to any particular object, but keep this upright posture and breathing, and let everything come and go. So in that sense, our Zazen is not samadhi. Even though Dogen used the word expression samadhi, and he called his Zazen practice as Jijuyu Zammai. Zammai is a transliteration of samadhi. So the meaning is different. And about dhyana. Dhyana is the original Sanskrit word for Zen, or Chinese word Chan. About dhyana, it said, second, bearing a close connection to samadhi is the term dhyana. Dhyana, D-H-Y. Then dhyana. I shall leave this untranslated. So he doesn't want to translate this into English. It refers in its more technical usage to a precise set of altered state of consciousness, usually 4 in number. The nature of these altered states will be discussed below. At this point, it must suffice to say that they are enstatic. Enstatic? probably make it static. That is calm or quiet. Enstatic, aimed initially at withdrawing the practitioner's senses and thoughts from interaction with the external world, and finally at beginning all mental activity. And finally at bringing all mental activities to a halt. That means try to stop all the function of our mind to become really motionless. I think that's what this means. This is what Zen or Dhyana means, at least in Indian Buddhism, according to this scholar. If that is correct, then our practice is not Dhyana, or our practice is not Zen, because our purpose or our goal is not bringing our mind into a halt, but we keep, just mind coming and everything coming and going. So our mind is working, same as any part of our body is still working in our sitting. There's no reason, only our brain stops working when we sit in the Zendo. So I think we can see the uniqueness of Dogen's or our sitting practice, different from other, even within Buddhist traditions. But I believe, this practice or this teaching by Dogen is connected with Shakyamuni's teaching, as I said, being free from this mara called five skandhas. How can we dismantle or disassemble or deconstruct produced by the work of five skandhas? And our five skandhas separate ourselves from the rest of the world. And I think I am the observer. And I try to do things in the way I want and put everything under my control. And I think that is, according to Shakyamuni, that is a cause of suffering within samsara. Because I try to treat things based on my desire. Not too often it works in the way we want. So somehow we feel, to live is difficult, or life is really simply suffering. Nothing can be under my control. But when we open our heart and see, we are living together as a kind of a universal movement, part of this universal movement, somehow we can find the way to live together with all beings in a harmonious way. And after dissolved or dismantled, Uchimura said, therefore, when doing zazen, we just sit. So this zazen is just sitting, or shikantaza, letting go of everything that comes up. All that has been learned is given back to learning. All that is memorized is given back to memory. All that has been thought is given back to thought. This giving back is, I think, this not thinking. Even though thoughts are there and we don't fight against thought, but we don't think. And Okumura Roshi expresses as a giving back. That means these are not my possession, but I don't kill them. It's there, but it's not mine. That means I don't need to take action based on each and everything happening in our mind. Especially, at least during the Zen. Actually, we cannot do anything. We cannot take any action. So this Zazen is very special, unique thing in our activities we can do. Usually we take action based on our thinking, and we have to do that in the daily lives. But this Zazen is a very unique and precious thing that we don't need to take action based on our thinking and like and dislike. We can just let go. So it's, in a sense, it's a relief or release. We are released from this production of 5 skandhas. And 5 skandhas are simply being 5 skandhas. That is the time, not we, but 5 skandhas see the emptiness of 5 skandhas. Or 5 skandhas are just emptiness. Or 5 skandhas is just 5 skandhas. And it continues to work. But it's not my thinking. And finally he said, to let go of everything, that is the posture of Zazen. So this is, I think, Okumura Roshi's understanding of what Dogen meant, and his understanding of what Buddha taught about the emancipation or awakening. So awakening is not like awaken to and seeing something special, like a reality or truth. But awakening is being upright, sitting upright, and just be as it is, without clinging to anything. Well, this is what I have to say this morning. Any question or comments, please?
I have a question about this lecture today, and then a following question about the previous 4. The term ecstatic that you just put on the
Ecstatic?
teaching seems to me to denote a state of having neither subject nor object, and that would be total stability, which would, the only reason that it would seem to me to go against Dogen's teaching is that it implies a permanence rather than the clouds coming and going and clearing. But ecstatic would seem to me to be almost identical to untrammeled equilibrium. And so it seems to me that there is an inconsistency in the teachings, and I wondered if you could comment on that.
I think Indian idea of meditation practice is to, according to these scholars, is to calm down or almost eliminate our thinking. Then we can find the foundation of beyond subject and object by eliminating subject. And in this practice, object, there's no external things. it's happening only in our mind, and we eliminate the function of our mind, at least, eliminate the thinking. So I don't think it's contradicted, but as a method it's different. That is what I meant.
Okay. Now, I've had terrible difficulty formulating this question. I can do the question, but then I would really appreciate being able to put it in context. The question that has arisen in my mind as a consequence of the last 3 or 4 discussions is, what is the role of karma as it relates to the 5 standards?
Skandhas.
Karma and the 5 skandhas?
Yes.
5 aggregates?
How does it, yes, the 5 components. Now, before we went on break.
Actually, those karmas means, karma literally means actions. That means what we experience in the past.
Right.
Has some influence, some power and influence to our present life.
Yes.
That is what karma means.
I concede that. The question I have is how it arises and how does it rest and how it's eventually shed is the essence of my concern. Before we went on break, you indicated that it comes into existence, if I remember your phrase correctly, almost on a cellular level.
Almost what?
On a cellular level.
I don't understand that English word.
I think those were the words you used, that it comes in without our knowing, but it just comes in almost like our cells create the karma. That is, that there's a certain number of cells that compose the brain, there's a certain number of cells that compose my kneecap. And if I understood, what confused me before break was how karma comes in a cellular level. Then, when we came back from break, you broke the mind down into 9 levels.
I think 8.
8. I thought it was 9, but you know better than I.
Okay.
I can concede 8. And so the 8th level you indicated is kind of unknowing and percolates up into a consciousness level. So but that we really don't understand the depth of 8, that indeed it is almost inexplicable, is the impression I got. And so my question is that 8th level the cellular composition of karma, and if it is accumulating from past actions of reincarnation or whatever, when we get to the state of trying to purify that and overcome it, we are almost, what we have is a kind of a temporary self that is bound because of karma, and that we would eventually, if we were successful in letting go of all thought, I would assume we're going to dispose of all karma in that process. Is that a correct assumption? That's my question.
Well, I'm not sure if I understand your question correctly, but this 8th layer of our consciousness is called alaya, and alaya means storehouse. That means all the experience we had in the past are stored within this deepest layer of our consciousness. And Yogacara teaching called these are stored as seeds. As a seed, it's stored. So this alaya consciousness is a collection of all the karmic experiences we had, and it's still here. But Yogacara teaching said this alaya consciousness and things are stored there is impermanent.
Right.
It's not permanent. It's changing, and it said it's like a waterfall. Looks like the same waterfall continue for long time, many centuries, but actually the water is always new. So it looks like same thing, but each moment it's new. That is how they kind of avoid the fixed permanent thing, and yet there's continuation.
It's a way around self, is what
Right.
it is. And of course, that's what I've been fighting
Yeah.
for having
So
here.
basically, this idea is kind of invented to explain how reincarnation is possible or continuation is possible without the self.
Okay, thank you. Now, I've been working on that now for a year.
Okay. Okay, good. Please.
When you were talking about Vipassana meditation, I was thinking about the technique that's used when you get caught up in thought, to regard the thought or emotion pattern as not me and not I and not mine. Also, that it's not owned by me. To release it. So that sounds a lot like letting go of thought or opening the hand of thought. So I was wondering if you could maybe say something about the difference between that and Chikukasa.
I think difference is we just sit and we don't, how can I say, see them as object. Some meditation technique is labeling. Means certain things happened. We label label as a good, bad, or sadness or pain. By labeling, we become free. But we don't do that. We leave everything coming and going. And fortunately, nothing stays forever. Usually. I think that's the difference. This person doesn't make any kind of control or even make change. That makes sense. Please.
So I feel when I do Zazen, there is kind of an element of concentration at least, because I think if I really, try to do nothing, I'll just think constantly or fall asleep. I sort of have to concentrate on letting go of thought to some extent. So there seems to be some kind of direction in the Zazen. So couldn't we say there's still some, or maybe it's like sort of an absolute relative way of describing the experience, sort of at an absolute level, there's no concentration.
Okumura Roshi talks about the analogy of driving. We, even though our mind is nowhere, somehow our hands are holding the steering wheel, and even without thinking, we adjust. Keep our car in the right track, in the right lane. And when we have to make a change, we intentionally change the lane. But in our in the Zendo, only one lane, so we don't need to think. But this upright posture and breathing, deep breathing, and letting go is, I think, is a point to return. Whenever we do something else but just sitting, we're returning to this posture or breathing. That means when we are involved in thinking. Often our body is not upright, or our breathing can be shallow, or sometimes we feel we are sleeping. Not feel, but we are aware. That means we are dreaming, and within dream we think. So then sometimes in a kind of extreme condition, thinking and dreaming are almost the same thing. It's very difficult to make a clear distinction. Even when we are sleeping, our brain is still working. During the Zen, we, this keeping this upright posture, breathing, and letting go is the point to return. That is the same thing how we, use the steering wheel during the car. And Okumura Roshi said, when we drive a car with this, attitude of, our mind is nowhere and yet everywhere, then we can say we concentrate on driving, not on certain object. Does it make sense? Okay, please.
When you said about sitting beside the white wall, you did use the word "come down."
Use what? Which word?
You did use the word "come down."
Calm down.
Does it mean to become humble?
Become humble. Kenson, being humble.
Humble, and to allow, or only to be, not to have control and only to be beside the wall, and come down is like 落ち着くじゃなくて
The word Okumura Roshi used here is nobose ga sagaru. Nobose? The problem of this thing produced by our five skandhas called I or ego is has 4 functions or 4 problems. That is called.
I don't remember what is standard.
Gachi ga ken, ga man, ga ai. Ga means self or ego or Atman. Chi and ken and man and I. Chi means ignorance. Even though there is no such things called I, somehow we think it's there. And ken is based on that egocentricity. We create different views about things. And man is arrogance. Arrogance, that means I'm better than others. We compare with others and feel I'm okay, but they have problems. And I is love or attachment. So those are the symptoms or problems caused by the idea or grasping of me or I. And part of this Gaman, we can be arrogant when we have some exciting about me. But when we come down, we see we are not so different. we are all ordinary human beings, and we are all deluded. So we become free from this self-arrogance when we come down. I think that is true.
And all of this is Mara.
Yeah.
We have the same word in Polish about
Oh, really?
Mara.
Mara, yes.
Yours, like yours.
Okay. Anything else, please?
Last week you spoke about ego attachment quite a bit. And I'm wondering if you consider ego attachment a thought, or does it, or I'll leave it at
I
that.
think ego attachment is a root of ego-centered thought. Thought is created when this ego encounter with something.
Okay.
Then I may create a view about those things based on this ego attachment. So ego attachment is deeper than this Gaken.
Okay. So ego attachment is the result of the 5 skandhas?
I think so. 5 skandhas attach to 5 skandhas and say, think this is me. And this is the center of the world.
Yeah. Would you call that a mental event, the ego attachment, or I'm just curious to understand the nature of the ego attachment.
It's up to the definition of the word. If mental function, that means the function of a thinking mind, then I think ego attachment is deeper than that.
Okay.
In Yogacara it's called manas, or ego consciousness, 7th consciousness. And that this ego consciousness grasps the seeds stored in the Araya consciousness as me, and control the first 6 sense organs. So ego attachment is deeper than ego-centered way of thinking.
So then it would seem to me we're born with ego attachment.
Yeah, we need ego attachment to live as an individual being. So our practice, or Buddhist practice, is not kill the ego attachment. That's why Shakyamuni didn't kill Mara. He lived with Mara as a friend. So Mara appeared, certain occasion of Buddha's life, especially right before his death. So Mara is Shakyamuni himself. But according to Yogacara teaching, this ego consciousness, the 7th consciousness, when it's transformed, it functions as a wisdom which sees equalities of all everything.
Wisdom what?
Of seeing equality of everything,
of
all things. When this ego attachment is released, then we see we are all the same. Please?
If Buddha confronts Mara at the point of death, would Mara not have to be totally overcome in order for Buddha not to be reincarnated?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Buddha reincarnated or not.
He says he's done. He's not coming back.
No.
And so
no reincarnation
no
for Buddha.
So that would seem to me to imply that Mara is completely conquered at last.
I don't know. Well, even though Buddhist teachings said Buddha have no reincarnation, but when Shakyamuni was asked if Buddha exists even after his death, Buddha had no answer. He didn't say anything. So that is one of the questions Buddha didn't answer. So I don't think I need to give answer.
Well, that's just how.
And I'm sorry, but I have no answer. Please.
I have a practical question. No, my question really is very practical. So when I'm sitting in zazen, often it happens that I feel I need to adjust my posture. And it's because, let's say I do this or this. And when I become aware of that, I'm evaluating, yes, I'm observing, and I say, oh, that's bad, I shouldn't do that, and then I straighten up, So when I am evaluating, oh, my posture is bad, then I'm not really doing zazen then, right? Because I'm subject.
Same as when we are thinking.
Okay, yeah.
But when you correct your posture, then the thought that I have to correct my posture
Goes
disappear.
away. Yeah. And so
That is how we return to upright posture.
Okay. And so when you were talking about driving the car, and you said sometimes when we're driving, we do things automatically.
Yeah.
So we don't have to evaluate.
Yeah. We don't need to think.
We don't need to think.
But
Okay.
when we are very sleepy, or we focus on some thinking and forget about the road, then we have to intentionally, wake up and make a correction.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened in our zazen also.
Okay. So maybe it will eventually happen for me that I automatically correct.
I think so.
And I don't have to think.
Yeah, the body takes care of it.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Good. Good.
I was wondering, I didn't quite catch, how is it that we use how can you explain how the analogy of the waterfall and reincarnation, how does that work again, to not explain, to not have to have a soul that transfers to the other?
That's my question. I mean, that is one of the theories to answer that question. But I don't think any kind of theory created by a Buddhist master to explain why reincarnation is possible without Atman. There are many theories, but I don't think any one of them really works well. So I still have a question: why such a thing possible? But the point of this Yogacara teaching is, nothing is permanent, and yet there is a continuation like a waterfall. And the point is whether this can apply to from one lifetime to next lifetime. So I have no answer. I'm sorry.
Sorry,
Okay.
Sorry.
Only one question.
Okay. In the early version of the Fukan Zazengi, I think is it correct that it did not include the Hishiryo?
No.
And instead he said,
when you have thought aware it, then when you aware it, it disappeared.
Isn't that sort of like the what he was saying about jhana in the book, in Griffith's book, sort of similar?
I don't think so. In that case, I actually that was not Fat Dogen wrote. That came from the older Chinese Zazengi. But when he, at least in his teaching, this means let go. When we are aware, we let go. And somehow it disappears. But next moment it returns. That's a problem. So we have to repeat this billions of times. Thank you.